Well, Vasanth, thank you so much for taking time for this. I really appreciate it. As we start, can you talk maybe a little bit about your role in the company?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Misha, for having me and letting me share my views. Yeah, so I'm the Senior Director of Information Security at Couchbase. I've been at Couchbase for a little over a year now, and I head up the information security at the company. I've been entrusted to stand up or establish an information security program and enhance it or uplevel it to the to a next level. So yeah, that's what I've been doing at Couchbase.
I understand. And can you maybe talk a little bit how you got into cybersecurity? I understand you've been at the Couchbase for about a year and a half or so. Like what was your path to cybersecurity, like through your career arc?
Yeah, absolutely. So yes, I've been at Couchbase just a little over a year now. But my path into cybersecurity was, I would say, not traditional. I did not start in the cybersecurity space. So again, it might sound I've been in this industry for a long time, but I actually started on IBM mainframes, working on IBM mainframes, and then moved into Java, and then cloud platforms. So I've had this varied experience and exposure to different technologies, different programming languages. And again, throughout my career, I started off as a developer, and then I moved into services. So I had the opportunity to look at things from different perspectives. And then I also did my MBA around 2010. And then I got an opportunity to work for a company where I moved into a management position. It was a technical managerial position, but then the responsibilities were completely different. So I was heading up the IT, production operations, and security. So that's when I first got introduced to the real security. And this was a financial services company. So as you can understand, with any financial services, the
level of oversight
security is,
it's very different.
Yeah, it's absolutely critical. So that was, I was hands-on into security, understanding the customer requirements, understanding compliance requirements. And that's how over the next 10 to 12 years, all other roles that I got into was highly into security.
I understand.
Yeah, so that's and then I think a couple of years ago, I also passed the CCSO examination conducted by EC Council, and here I am at Couchbase.
Totally, I understand. So for all the people who are just looking to get a career, and maybe they're looking to switch from IT to cybersecurity, or maybe even students as they're thinking of their career and looking at cybersecurity as a growing space, from your vantage point and from your experience, what would you suggest that they focus on? What are some of the things they should do?
Yeah, so cybersecurity is a vast field, and it's a rapidly growing field. There's a lot of demand, and I may even predict that in the next 10 years, the InfoSec professionals would be a sought after breed. That's what I'm thinking. So when I look at cybersecurity or information security, I would like to categorize it into three different buckets. So you have product security or the AppSec, and then you have GRC, governance, risk, and compliance. And then you have the SOC, the Security Operations Center. And in my view, for any cybersecurity program, you start off with GRC. That's the foundation. You need the policies in place. You need to make sure you do the risk assessments, and you are compliant with anything that the company needs to be compliant. So when you look at it, the skill sets for these three different buckets are slightly different. GRC, for example, you need to think differently. You need to think from a policy perspective. For example, you should be able to draft policies. You should understand what compliance requirements are, or what certification requirements need to be met. You need to have the ability to collaborate with various stakeholders. It could be internal stakeholders, external stakeholders, work with auditors, for example, and also work with management. So you'll probably be doing risk assessments for the company. So documentation is key here. And obviously have to be technical, but then this probably does not require too deep of a technical knowledge. Security operations on the other front is where you act like a hacker, right? So you try to understand what the bad actors uh, are trying to do, and then you work both from an offensive and a defensive perspective. You prevent any potential attacks, and then you also so this is where there's a bit of technical knowledge that is required, right? Product security, again, ideally you would want to be you would want to come from a development background. So this way you understand the SDLC process, and then you add security to that. That's what we are all talking about, left shift in security, right? So you start your development with the security view in place. So this is the field or the scenario, and then how, as I said, for certain things you need deep technical background. Certain things you need different types of skill sets. There are for somebody who is coming out of college, basically you need to have that passion to work with the security world, right? So you need to have the aptitude to learn. And once you feel that you have an inclination towards that, then there are courses that are offered in college for cybersecurity. There are various certification programs that are available. And that's again, as I said, it's a growing field, a lot of opportunities. So it's a great time to get into information security.
Certainly, certainly. So basically, we're just understanding the requirements for three different fields that you mentioned, and preparing yourself and testing your aptitude to whether you want to be more technical, less technical, and what side, red team, blue team, GRC, or on the developer side with the AppSec you want to be involved in. I think it's very valid. This is awesome. But we talk a lot with cybersecurity professionals and kind of vendors, and as you mentioned, the space is changing so quickly. New challenges emerge, new technologies to address those challenges emerge. It's kind of ever evolving, and there are certain themes that everyone is focusing on right now, like ransomware, phishing attacks, and things like this. But from your vantage point, if you look in the future, let's say a crystal ball, and 12 months from now, these are the three things that will be the center of the focus of the cybersecurity professionals, what would those three things be in your opinion?
Yeah, you actually mentioned ransomware, right? And that's what we're seeing, and there's an increase in such attacks. So basically, for a ransomware to take place, one of the easiest ways for them is to breach the human firewall, right? And that is where we need to focus. Most companies need to focus and make sure that the human firewall is secure. I believe there's a research which said 90% of the breaches happen because there is a kink in the human firewall. So yes, ransomware is something that is and will be a potential threat for a lot of companies, most companies. And then supply chain attacks. So this is an area where all companies need to understand that bad actors, again, you expose something, you don't, if you don't have a proper security posture, you leave some gaps, then they introduce bad code as part of your product, and then it can lead to really bad impacts, right? So and then cloud security. So this is something that I really care about and passionate. Cloud is something that is evolving. I know it's been there around for about 15 years, but then it's not mature. We do not have enough professionals who are proficient in securing the environments in the cloud. And then it's different because a developer can go in and then expose certain things that he should not be doing, right? So that is where companies need to get their hands around and make sure that anything that is developed on the cloud, anything that is offered on the cloud is secure. And it's quite clear with the number of SaaS companies growing. If I need to purchase a SaaS product, then the scrutiny on the SaaS product is so much more than the scrutiny on an on-prem software, for example.
Sure. For sure. No, it makes a lot of sense. And to your point, those products need to be developed with security in mind, not thinking that security is just a layer you slap on top, because that's kind of will be prone to
Absolutely.
to issues down the line. That's excellent. Again, switching gears a little bit here, it kind of Affinia is designed to be a community of professionals with the kind of vendor free for the most part, with an idea to kind of foster networking and knowledge sharing. And we're still growing, we're still evolving our offering. And kind of from that perspective, from what you've seen so far, what are some of the things Affinia as a community, in your view, should be doing more of, or less of, or maybe something that we're not currently doing what we should be? What are in those kind of three vectors? What will be your thoughts?
Yeah, and I do understand that Affinia is probably at a young age right now, right? So it's developing, and this is what actually attracted me. I mean, basically the concept of bringing together like-minded professionals, security professionals, and that's something that is the need of the hour in the security space. So when I look at what is available today, there's not much or not many avenues to collaborate with fellow security professionals today. There could be a few groups on LinkedIn and things like that, but there's nothing that is formal or something that is managed or coordinated. And Affinia is doing something that, or it's filling the void. I know there's a couple of companies who are trying to do this, a similar thing on the people side, the HR side of things. But this is great that Affinia is doing. So what I would be looking forward to is an opportunity to, first of all, communicate and interact or network with fellow security professionals, and a forum where I can openly and confidentially share knowledge or ask questions. And that is critical, because at the end of the day, all security professionals, all companies are facing the same enemy. So it's best for us to actually get together and fight this enemy together rather than trying to do this.
For sure. Absolutely. And do you think this should be done more in a kind of face-to-face format, or online, or maybe both? Or maybe start with face-to-face and then transition to online? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, with COVID, again, face-to-face probably is not possible right now, but things are definitely improving.
Mm-hmm.
Any interaction that is face-to-face obviously has a lot more value, and not only value, there's more that we get out of these face-to-face interactions.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no distractions. So yes, face-to-face definitely is something that I'd be looking forward to. And maybe once a month, Zoom meetings or something like that, where people with similar interests can join and collaborate.
100%. No, it makes a lot of sense. Again, kind of switching gears a little bit. We talked about kind of the cybersecurity space evolving and ever changing. Where do you usually go to learn about new products, new challenges, new threat vectors? There's so much, from your personal network to online resources to vendors, to Gartner, to G2 Crowd. What's your source of choice to learn about something that's new and evolving?
Yeah, so online resources. If I need to learn something, like most people, like most topics, you go to Google, but then there's also references from friends. This is something that I might regret saying, but then there's a lot that I also learned from these vendor newsletters, right? So there's a lot of webinars that they conduct. There's a lot of informational sessions that they conduct, and I've actually signed up for quite a few. And I find it a great way to learn about new technologies, new innovations, new concepts in security world.
Interesting. It's a lot of people that we talk to, they have a little bit of love and hate relationship. They rely on vendors obviously for solutions, but in the way they approach selling, a lot of people that we talk to, a lot of Athenia members, they say that they get bombarded with emails and phone calls. And it's kind of a moving field, and I understand they have very kind of they have sales targets, and there are certain incentives that make them do things the way they do. But from that perspective, how would you prefer that if you're, let's say, you're looking to get a new solution and you're trying to get from 10 potential vendors to, let's say, 3, what would be your kind of preferred way for them to approach you?
Yeah, so we actually have a formal, well-defined process that we follow when we are shortlisting vendors. We start off with the requirements. We need to first identify what we need specifically, and then when we talk about requirements, what are the absolute must-haves, and then what are some of the nice-to-haves or the optional requirements. Once we have this list, and then we identify the list of potential vendors, either based off of Cheetah Crowd or Gartner, or again, we don't want to limit ourselves just to these avenues. We just do a search, an online search, and sometimes you find vendors who are not part of these, say Gartner, but then they actually satisfy your requirements. And then once we have this, the list of vendors, the list of requirements, then we go through each one of our must-have requirements, and that shortlist our vendors a little more. And then when we have a handful of vendors, we actually schedule time with them first to discuss whether what their offering is, and then to make sure they meet all of our requirements, not just functionality requirements, but also security requirements. We want to make sure the vendor has a proper security program in place, and they develop their products based on proper security controls, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then maybe demos, POCs, and obviously budget is something that we will have to consider. Once all of this falls in place, we have a final list, 1 or 2.
Well, Vasanth, thank you so much I know we're coming up on time. I think this was very interesting, and I certainly hope we'll continue the conversation. And thank you for sharing your insights. And I'm not sure if you're planning on, but we most likely will be at RSA conference. I think you're in California, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So I'm not sure if you're planning on attending, but if you are, we're definitely going to plan something. Again, probably not as large scale as RSA, but something like a sidebar event for Athenia members. So if you're in the area and interested, we'll certainly have many opportunities to connect and kind of, because I think it's as those post-COVID requirements of being relaxed and kind of the world is moving on. We certainly are planning on having those kind of small group face-to-face events, which I think will be conducive to establishing relationships. Then you can, if you have a question, you already have a group of professionals that you know and trust, so you can quickly get feedback or get answered to your questions. So it's definitely something we're working on.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to attend some of these meetings, get to know people, and start networking.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you, Misha, for having me.